So about a week or two ago, I was listening to the Exploding Heads Horror Movie Podcast, my personal favorite podcast, and they were joking around. This is an older episode, I think, but they were joking around about how there has never been a Hanukkah-themed horror slasher movie, that a lot of other holidays had been covered, and I think Brandon is the only one that's Jewish. Yeah, and they kind of brought it up because of that, and they were going into all their different versions of the way they would like to see the movie play out, and why doesn't someone do that, and maybe we'll be the guys that do it. And then boom, man, I'm not even joking, like the next day I found out, or maybe even the same day, that this movie not only existed but was playing about 5 minutes from my house at the Dollar Theater. You know, it's just this was put on by a company called Cult Films, Cult Films, I think that's what it was, and they're hosting films there now from week to week, and I think this was their inaugural show. So it's pretty cool to have a slasher film, low budget thing, one night only, one screening only, indie slasher to go and support here in town. So I was thankful for that, and I got to go see it with the guys from the horror show, Cecil and Fuego, and also a buddy of mine, Maurice, was there. Anyway, you guys don't need to know all that. We're here for the review of Hanukkah. Now, this has the last performances from not only Sid Haig, but also Dick Miller, which I thought was really interesting. We also have other horror alums here, which would be Carolyn Williams from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, obviously Stretch, and we also have PJ Souls, and if you don't know who that is, then you have no soul. And the music was done by Harry Manfredini, obviously of Friday the 13th fame, and ironically enough, this happens to be Friday the 13th right now, so happy Friday the 13th to you guys. And also the stunt coordinator on the movie was Kane Hodder. So a lot of love for the genre, clearly, and this is a throwback slasher of sorts. Now, as far as the plot line goes, I mean, the plot is pretty thin here. We do get a really dark opening that's very serious in tone with Sid Haig as the Hana killer. And I actually really liked that. I liked the way that it was lit. I thought the cinematography was pretty good. I thought it was a real dark sequence, and I was enjoying it. And I was like, all right, man, like, this could be something really cool here. And then the opening theme song came on during the credits, and I was like, oh, this is a pretty cool theme. And then I saw who was doing the music, having not known walking in who did it. I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. That's so cool that they got him to do this. And then we meet our main characters, and it's also sad. As far as the story goes, it's a group of kids. They're going to a party that's like 2 hours away. A couple of them are Jewish. One of them is their friend Josh, I think, and he is like a devout Jew, and he's dating a girl named Rachel, and he's waiting for marriage, but she doesn't want to wait for marriage. And so these guys go to a party. I'm trying to stretch out the plot and give something here, because the plot is very, very thin, but it's a slasher movie. I mean, what do you expect? There's a Hanukkah, like a rabbi-looking guy who's going around and killing people over a few day period. I think it's supposed to be 8 days, but it ain't. I mean, even though the film stretches itself out to try to, make more days happen than necessary, because the problem with this movie is that it's A, way too long, and B, it feels like a Frankenstein film. Like, it feels like a lot of reshoots were edited together and they just made do with what they had. Because there's a sequence in this, I don't want to say what it is because it's a spoiler, but all of a sudden characters are captured and there's no explanation. It is such a hard cut. And I looked over at Cecil and I was like, how the fuck did these guys, And he was like, I have no idea. I don't know what the hell's going on right now. And we just kind of looked at each other, just kind of baffled. So I feel like scenes are missing. So in one way, I feel like this film is incomplete, but in the other, on the other hand, I feel like the film is too long. So it almost sounds contradictory to say it's too short and too long at the same time. But that doesn't mean it's too short. It just means that there's scenes that are missing to make it move smoothly from one scene to the next. The film also is very serious at times and then tries to be like parody goofy slasher at other times. So the tone's very uneven, so it feels like two different movies at one point, because the opening, as I said, is very serious, very dark, and I was like, oh, that's the tone they're going with. I was expecting this to be kind of a cheesy slasher with really goofy over the top characters and whatnot. And then we move into those characters and we move into those kinds of situations, and I was like, oh, okay, so they're changing the tone up here. But then we'd move back into something really serious for a while, and I'd be like, okay, so is this being serious? Is this not being serious? It's hard with films like this. When you're talking about ultra low budget indie horror like this, I'm not here to bash on these things. And I thought that there was a decent amount here that I really did enjoy. But at the end of the day, it just felt so incomplete. I mean, that's really the only word I can use. Like, even, and this might not be the finished product. I mean, I could see that this is a director's cut of sorts, and they're gonna work on it maybe more because, when it came to the sound design, there was a lot of sound missing from the movie. Like, people would go to pick things up or touch things or something, and there was no sound at all. It was just like completely muted. And I was like, that is weird. It was very jarring when it would happen, because when you pick something up, there's supposed to be a sound and there's supposed to be weight to it, and you hear it in the movie, and there's just nothing. And it kind of takes you out of the movie. There's also really long sequences of dialogue that isn't interesting and doesn't really do anything for the plot. There's a lot of humor in the movie, and I feel like it's more miss than hit, although some of it did make me laugh. And as I said, there are things from this movie that I took away as fun and a good time, but I would say more than less, I was not into it, and I felt like it dragged, and I feel like a lot could be cut out of this movie, and a lot could have been reshot and put into this movie to make it more coherent. And there's some characters that are standouts here. I thought that the Russian characters that come to the party, I thought for the most part they were actually the funnest characters, the funniest characters. One of the guys, he's making all these like dick jokes and stuff. He was funny. I enjoyed his character. And of course it wouldn't be me if I didn't point this out, but there's a lot of very attractive women in this movie, and a lot of nudity, and one of the girls, I mean, they're all very attractive, but one of these girls, name's Judy. She has like tattoos, like little X's on her face and a bunch of tattoos and shit, and she's naked a lot in this movie, and she is just stunning. She was worth the price of admission for me. Like, every time she was on screen, I was just like, this is good. I like her. I like this scene. There's some gore in this movie, but a lot of the film does take place at night outside, and most of that stuff is so poorly lit that you genuinely can't see anything. And then also, there is one really, really solid gore sequence towards the end, and I was impressed by that. So I was surprised, because up until that point, as I said, that's right way towards the end, the gore was very lackluster for me. And then all of a sudden you get this insane gore gag that I was like really like blown away by. Like, wow, this looks fantastic. Wow, I'm really surprised by this. This is good stuff. And then there's an ending sequence. Like, the last 5 minutes after this movie already felt way too long, there's like this tacked on 5-minute sequence where Dick Miller's appearance comes in. I do not understand the purpose of the sequence at all. I'm guessing they're setting up a sequel, because it does promise one in the credits at the end. But yeah, I mean, Dick Miller's dead now, so I don't know if that will play in. There's another character there, so maybe that's the character. But I genuinely, as I said, it has to be a setup for a sequel. It's the only explanation I have, because as it stands right now, I was asking people in the lobby, Cecil and Fuego and everybody. I was just like, did you guys understand what that was? What was that character? What purpose did it serve the movie? Like, what was that? And it was, I have no idea. Like, I have no idea. We're all kind of very confused about a lot of different sequences. We're like, why was this important? And where did this go? And where did this character go? And why? And so, as I said, ultra low budget indie. I'm very happy to have supported low budget horror. I was very happy to support the guys who put this on. It was cool to go see movies with some friends. I got a really gorgeous woman getting naked for a long time. Another bunch of very attractive ladies there too that I'm not gonna stick my nose up at. A really great gore sequence. Some fun comedy aspects. I feel like I wish this movie would have picked whether it wanted to be a serious movie or a silly movie, and go for one or the other. Honestly, I liked the serious stuff way better. Like, I think that if they would have dropped most of the comedy and just stuck to like a straight up slasher film, like not a fun one, but like a super serious one, you don't get a lot of those. Like, these 80s throwback movies, they're almost always goofs. They're almost always parodies. They're almost always self-aware, and it's the safe route to take it, to not take it seriously. Because then at the end of the day, you can be like, whoa, come on, man. We weren't trying to take it seriously. You're just supposed to have fun. Why can't you have fun? And that's always felt like a cop-out to me. Not that films can't be successful in that capacity. I just think that a lot of the times people more go towards parody horror and comedy horror because they don't have the confidence to make a serious movie, because then they have to take it seriously, and everyone who's there is being asked to take it seriously, and then you can't hide behind it was just all for fun. So, but that's kind of the irony of this, is that almost all of the serious stuff outside of that last sequence, which I said I don't think that had a purpose to the movie, I really liked that stuff, but a lot of the comedy just didn't land, and it was overall it wasn't a fun time. But I think that if you're a slasher fan, it's definitely worth a check out, but only if you're like a super hardcore indie slasher fan. You'll get some references. Of course, PJ Souls has some callback lines that you'll be like, oh, fan service, but it was cute to see. It's good to see Carolyn Williams and Sid Haig and all these people. So it's worth a watch, but just kind of understand what you're getting yourself into. And also, I would hope that the filmmakers recut this and maybe insert some scenes that I feel like are missing, and maybe take out some that are to tighten things up. But not a bad time. Not a bad movie. I mean, it has its flaws. It definitely has a lot of flaws. But overall, I'm glad I went. I had a good time, but it just drags too damn much. Anyways, I feel like this fucking review is dragging too much. I guess why is because I don't like giving negative reviews to ultra low budget stuff like this, where people obviously put in a ton of work. I know that they had Sid Haig's death, Dick Miller's death. They had shit to deal with here, and I have no doubt that really screwed things up, and they had to do a lot of reshoots, rewrites, and just kind of just like put it together as coherently as they possibly could, and this is the product, the end product. So I understand that, and I'm empathetic to that. So I don't like doing it, but I can only give you my honest opinion. Some good, a good amount of bad. So there you go. Anyway, guys, so let me know if you check it out. It's not going to get a VOD release until February 11th, if memory serves me correctly. It's getting another showing here in Phoenix on December 23rd at the Film Bar. So if you're in Phoenix, that's where I know it's going to be playing. But you can check your local times to see if you want to catch this in theater and support indie horror. Anyways, guys, I know you're not going to see it for a while, but there's a little early sneak peek of this movie. Adios.